She fed her 5 children cereal for dinner 3 nights straight. Today, she owns a $1 million business and teaches other moms how to build wealth from their kitchen table. The eviction notice came on a Tuesday morning, while Mariella was trying to get her 5 kids ready for school. 8-year-old Emma, the oldest, read the big red letters on the door and asked what 30 days to vacate meant. Mariella's stomach dropped as she realized her daughter could read better than she could lie. "It's just paperwork, baby. Go get your backpack." But it wasn't just paperwork. It was the final warning that her world was about to collapse completely. The rent was 4 months behind. Her car had been repossessed 2 weeks ago, and the electricity bill sat unopened on the kitchen counter because she already knew what it said. She couldn't pay it. 6 months earlier, Mariella thought she had it figured out. She worked double shifts at the diner downtown, while her ex-husband, Roberto, watched the kids. The arrangement wasn't perfect, but it worked. She served coffee and pancakes from 5 a.m. to 2 p.m., then rushed home to pick up the kids from school. The tips weren't great, but combined with Roberto's construction work, they could keep their heads above water. Then Roberto left. Not gradually. Not with warning. He left on a Wednesday morning for work and never came home. His phone went straight to voicemail. His supervisor said he never showed up. His brother claimed he didn't know where he went. Mariella found out later that he'd moved to Phoenix with a woman he'd been seeing for months. The first week alone was chaos. Mariella couldn't work her morning shifts because she had no one to watch 3-year-old Lucas and 4-year-old Sophia. She tried bringing them to work once, setting them up in a corner booth with coloring books, but they lasted 20 minutes before Lucas had a meltdown, and Sophia spilled orange juice all over a customer's laptop. Her manager, Mr. Patterson, called her into his office after that incident. "Look, Mariella, I like you. You're a good worker, but I can't have kids running around my restaurant. It's not fair to the customers, and it's not safe. You need to figure this out, or I'll have to let you go." She tried everything. She asked her neighbor, Mrs. Chen, to watch the younger kids for a few hours each morning, offering to pay her $20 a day she didn't have. Mrs. Chen agreed for exactly 3 days before Lucas bit Sophia. Sophia threw a toy at 7-year-old Miguel, and 5-year-old Carlos flooded the bathroom, trying to give his action figures a bath. "I'm sorry, Mariella," Mrs. Chen said, handing the kids back at noon on the 3rd day. "I'm too old for this. They need someone younger, someone who can keep up." The daycare wanted $200 per week per child. Even if she could afford $600 a week for the 3 youngest, where would she find someone to pick up Emma and Miguel from school and watch them until she got home? The after-school program cost another $100 per week per child. Mariella did the math over and over, scribbling numbers on napkins and the backs of bills. Even working full-time at the diner, she brought home maybe $800 a month, including tips. Childcare alone would cost more than she made. It was impossible. She lasted 2 more weeks trying to juggle everything. She dropped the older kids at school, rushed to work with the 3 youngest in tow, get fired from yet another babysitting arrangement, and repeat the cycle. Finally, Mr. Patterson called her in again. "I'm sorry, Mariella. I really am. But you've missed 6 shifts in 2 weeks. I have to replace you." That night, Mariella sat at her kitchen table after putting all 5 kids to bed and stared at the bills spread in front of her. Rent, $200 behind. Electricity, $340 past due. Water, $156 overdue. Car payment, impossible since they'd already taken the car. Groceries, whatever was left after everything else, which was usually nothing. She had $43 in her checking account and a credit card that was maxed out at $500. In her purse, she had $12 in cash and a handful of coins she'd been collecting from under couch cushions and the car's cup holders before it got repossessed. The government assistance helped, but it wasn't enough. Food stamps covered basic groceries, but not the random things kids always needed. Emma needed new shoes because her toes were pressing against the front of her current ones. Miguel needed glasses because the school nurse said he was squinting at the board. Carlos had been asking for weeks why they couldn't go to McDonald's like other families. Mariella's pride had been the first thing to go. She'd grown up watching her own mother work 3 jobs to keep their family afloat, promising herself she'd never let her children see her struggle like that. But here she was, serving her kids cereal for dinner because it was filling and cheap, pretending it was fun to have breakfast for dinner when really it was all she could afford. The hardest part wasn't the empty refrigerator or the pile of bills. It was the way Emma had started taking charge of her younger siblings without being asked. How she'd help Lucas tie his shoes and make sure Sophia had her backpack. How Miguel had stopped asking for things he wanted and started asking if they really needed things they ran out of. How the three youngest had stopped complaining when dinner was cereal again. Or when Mariella said they couldn't afford to go to the movies. Or when she had to say no to birthday parties because she couldn't afford a gift. She was raising her children in survival mode, and they were starting to adapt to it. That scared her more than any eviction notice. The night she got the final eviction warning, Mariella stood in her tiny kitchen and looked around at the apartment that had been home for 3 years. The walls needed paint, the carpet was stained, and the heater barely worked in winter. But it was theirs. The kids had height marks penciled on the doorframe to the living room. Emma's art hung on the refrigerator. Lucas had learned to walk in this living room. In 30 days, they'd be homeless. She had 5 children, no job, no car, and no plan. She was 32 years old, and she felt like her life was over before it had really begun. The idea came from the most unlikely place. A Facebook argument about school lunches. Mariella was scrolling through her phone at 2 a.m., unable to sleep because of stress, when she saw a post in a local moms group. A woman was complaining that the school cafeteria food was terrible and expensive, asking if anyone knew how to pack healthy lunches on a budget. The comments exploded. Dozens of moms sharing their struggles with meal planning, grocery budgets, and picky eaters. But most of the advice was generic. Meal prep on Sundays, or buy in bulk. No one was giving specific, actionable steps. Mariella started typing a response, then deleted it. Started again. Deleted again. Finally, she wrote out exactly what she'd learned from feeding 5 kids on $40 a week. How to make 3 different meals from 1 package of ground beef, which frozen vegetables actually tasted good and cost less than fresh. How to make pancakes filling enough to count as dinner, and which dollar store items were worth buying versus which ones were a waste of money. She hit post and went to bed. When she woke up 5 hours later to get the kids ready for school, her phone was buzzing with notifications. Her comment had 47 likes and 23 replies. Moms were asking follow-up questions, sharing their own tips, and thanking her for being so specific and honest. "This is the most helpful advice I've ever seen in this group," one mom wrote. "Do you have more tips like this?" Mariella screenshotted the comments and stared at them while Emma helped the younger kids get dressed. People were actually interested in what she had to say. People found her advice valuable. For the first time in months, she felt like she might be good at something. Over the next few days, she kept engaging in the group. When someone asked about potty training on a budget, she shared how she'd gotten creative with rewards and bathroom schedules. When another mom was stressed about birthday parties, Mariella explained how she threw Carlos a party for $15 using dollar store decorations and homemade cake. The responses kept coming. Private messages from moms asking for more detailed advice. Comments thanking her for being real about the struggles. Requests for her to share more tips. One message stood out. It was from a woman named Jennifer, who lived 2 towns over. "Hi Mariella, I've been following your comments in the moms group, and they're incredibly helpful. I run a blog about parenting, and I'm wondering if you'd be interested in writing a guest post about budgeting with kids. I can't pay much, but I could offer $50 for about 1,000 words. Let me know if you're interested." $50. Mariella stared at the message. $50 for writing down things she already knew. Things she was already sharing for free. She'd never thought of herself as a writer. She'd barely graduated high school, spending more time working part-time jobs than studying. In school, English was her worst subject. She was much better with numbers, with practical things, with figuring out how to make things work. But this wasn't about perfect grammar or fancy vocabulary. This was about sharing real solutions to real problems. She messaged Jennifer back. "Yes, I'm definitely interested." Writing the blog post took her 3 days. She'd work on it after the kids went to bed, writing and rewriting, trying to make sure every tip was clear and actionable. She wrote about meal planning with a $40 weekly budget, including a sample shopping list and 3 days' worth of meals. She shared her system for organizing kids' clothes to make mornings easier. She explained how she kept 5 kids entertained during a rainy weekend without spending money. When she submitted it, Jennifer responded within hours. "This is fantastic. It's exactly what my readers are looking for. Would you be interested in writing another one next month?" The blog post went live on a Tuesday. By Thursday, Mariella's phone was buzzing with notifications again. The post was being shared in Facebook groups, Pinterest, and parenting forums. The comments section was full of moms thanking her and asking for more advice. Jennifer messaged her again. "The response to your post has been amazing. I'd like to offer you a regular monthly column. $100 per post, and I think we could easily do 2 posts per month. Are you interested?" $200 a month. It wasn't enough to solve all her problems, but it was something. It was progress. But more than the money, something else was happening. For the first time since Roberto left, Mariella felt like she had a skill that mattered. She was good at this. She was good at taking complicated problems and breaking them down into manageable steps. She was good at finding solutions with limited resources. She was good at explaining things in a way that made sense to other people. The eviction notice was still taped to her door, and she still had bills she couldn't pay. But now she had something she didn't have before: a direction. A way forward that didn't involve depending on anyone else. 3 weeks after her first blog post, she was at the library with the kids, using the free internet, when she stumbled across an article about mom bloggers making 6-figure incomes. She read it twice, then bookmarked it. The article mentioned something called affiliate marketing, where bloggers earned commissions by recommending products. It talked about creating courses, selling meal plans, and building email lists. Most of it sounded complicated and overwhelming, but one line stuck out. "The most successful mom bloggers are the ones who solve real problems for real people." Mariella looked around the library at her 5 kids. Emma was helping Lucas with a puzzle. Miguel was quietly reading a picture book. Sophia and Carlos were coloring at the same table. She had been solving real problems for real people her entire adult life. She just hadn't realized it was a skill worth money. That night, after the kids were asleep, she opened a notebook and started writing down every problem she'd solved in the past year. How to feed 5 people on $40 a week. How to keep kids entertained without spending money. How to organize a small space with lots of people. How to handle tantrums in public. How to make kids feel special when you can't afford much. The list filled 3 pages. At the bottom, she wrote, "What if I could help other moms with all of this?" For the first time in months, she fell asleep thinking about possibilities instead of problems. Mariella's biggest advantage was also her biggest problem. She had nothing to lose. The eviction was in 2 weeks when she made her decision. She was going to bet everything on this crazy idea that she could help other moms and make money doing it. She spent her last $47 on a basic website domain and hosting, using the library's computer to set everything up. The website looked terrible. She used a free template and couldn't figure out how to change the colors or fonts. The logo was just text in a basic font. She didn't have professional photos, so she used pictures she took with her cracked phone screen. But it was hers, and it was live. She called it Real Mom Solutions, because that's exactly what it was. Real solutions from a real mom who was really struggling. Her first blog post was titled, "How I Feed 5 Kids on $40 a Week," with actual meal plans and shopping lists. She included everything. Which stores had the best prices for what items, how to stretch ground beef into 4 different meals, which generic brands tasted exactly like name brands, and which ones to avoid. She created actual shopping lists and meal plans for a week, with backup options for when stores were out of items. She posted it on a Sunday night and went to bed with 0 expectations. Monday morning, her phone was buzzing. The post had been shared in 12 different Facebook groups overnight. By Tuesday, it had 200 comments from moms sharing their own tips and thanking her for being so detailed. By Thursday, it had been shared on Pinterest 500 times. More importantly, moms were emailing her directly, asking for help with their specific situations. A single mom in Texas wanted advice on meal planning for kids with allergies. A mom in Ohio needed help organizing her tiny apartment for 4 kids. A mom in Florida was struggling with potty training twins while managing a newborn. Mariella answered every single email personally. spending hours after the kids went to bed, giving detailed advice tailored to each situation. She didn't charge anything. She was just happy that people valued her input. But the emails gave her an idea. Instead of just answering the same questions over and over, what if she created comprehensive guides that solved common problems? She could sell them for a small amount, and moms would get everything they needed in one place. Her first product was a $7 PDF called the $40 Weekly Meal Plan System. It wasn't just recipes, it was a complete system. How to plan meals around sales, how to prep ingredients to save time, how to get kids involved in cooking, how to handle picky eaters, and what to do when your plan falls apart. She included 4 weeks of complete meal plans, shopping lists organized by store section, and backup plans for common problems. She spent 2 weeks creating it, writing and rewriting, making sure every detail was clear. She designed it herself using free online tools, and it still looked amateur, but the content was solid. She announced it in a blog post and sent an email to the 43 people who had signed up for her newsletter. In the first 24 hours, she sold 12 copies, $84, more money than she'd made in weeks. But the real validation came from the feedback. Moms emailed her saying the system had saved them hours of planning time and hundreds of dollars on groceries. They were sharing screenshots of their organized meal plans and successful grocery trips. "This is the first time I've felt in control of dinner in months," one mom wrote. "My kids are actually eating what I make, and I'm spending half what I used to. Thank you for making this so easy to follow." Mariella read that email 3 times. She was helping people, actually helping them solve real problems that were making their lives harder. The eviction deadline was 3 days away when she got the call that changed everything. "Is this Mariella? My name is Patricia, and I run a local moms group here in the city. We have about 200 members, and your blog post about meal planning has been shared in our group probably 20 times. We're wondering if you'd be willing to come speak at our next meeting about budgeting and meal planning. We could pay you $150 for about an hour presentation." Mariella's first instinct was to say no. She'd never spoken in front of a group before. She didn't have professional clothes or a car to get there. She wasn't qualified to teach anyone anything. But then she looked around her apartment at the boxes she'd started packing and realized she was about to be homeless anyway. What did she have to lose? "Yes," she said, "I'd love to do that." The presentation was scheduled for the following Thursday. She had 4 days to prepare, pack up her apartment, and figure out where her family was going to sleep. She found a week-to-week motel room that cost $200 a week. It had 2 double beds, a kitchenette, and smelled like disinfectant, but it would keep her kids off the street while she figured out what came next. Moving day was chaotic. Emma helped pack while Miguel watched the younger 3. Everything they owned fit into her friend Maria's pickup truck in 2 trips. The kids thought it was an adventure at first, but by evening, Lucas was crying and asking when they could go home. "This is home for now," Mariella told him, trying to sound confident. "We're going to make it work." Thursday came faster than she expected. Maria agreed to watch the kids for 2 hours while Mariella gave her presentation. She wore her one nice outfit, black pants and a blue blouse she'd bought for job interviews, both of which were now too big because stress had made her lose weight. The community center room had about 40 women in it. Mariella had prepared a 1-hour presentation with handouts, but she was so nervous she talked too fast and finished in 35 minutes. But something amazing happened during the question and answer period. The women kept asking questions, sharing their own struggles, and asking for specific advice. What started as a formal presentation turned into a real conversation about the daily challenges of managing a family on a tight budget. "My biggest problem is my kids want the name brand everything they see on TV," one mom said. "How do you handle that?" Mariella knew exactly what to say because she'd lived it. "I started involving my kids in the grocery budget. I show them that if we buy the name brand cereal, we have $5 less for something else. I let them choose, fancy cereal or money for a family movie night. When they understand the trade-offs, they make different choices." The questions kept coming. How do you handle birthday parties when you can't afford gifts? How do you teach kids about money without scaring them? How do you meal plan when your kids hate everything you make? After 2 hours, the group leader had to end the session because the next group needed the room. But women kept approaching Mariella, asking for her contact information and thanking her for being so practical and honest. "You should do this professionally," one woman said. "I've been to other parenting workshops, and they're all theory. You give actual solutions that work in real life." On the drive home, Mariella couldn't stop thinking about that comment. Patricia paid her $150 as promised, but more than the money, she felt energized in a way she hadn't in months. She was good at this. Really good at it. That night, in the motel room while her kids slept in the 2 beds, she sat at the tiny table and opened her laptop. She had an idea for her next product, and for the first time since Roberto left, she felt like she might actually figure this out. The breakthrough came from a frustrated email at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday night. "Mariella, I bought your meal planning guide and it's great, but I need help with more than just food. My kids are driving me crazy, I can't keep the house clean, I'm behind on bills, and I feel like I'm failing at everything. Is there a guide for fixing your entire life when you're a single mom? Because that's what I really need." Mariella stared at that email for 20 minutes. She'd been getting similar messages for weeks. Moms who loved her meal plans, but needed help with bigger problems. Time management, organization, discipline, money. The overwhelming feeling that they were drowning in responsibilities. That's when it hit her. She wasn't just selling meal plans. She was selling systems for managing chaos. And single moms, especially ones struggling financially, were dealing with chaos in every area of their lives. The next morning, she started outlining what would become her signature system, the Single Mom Survival Blueprint. It wasn't just about food or budgeting. It was a complete framework for managing a household, kids, and finances when you're doing it all alone. The system had 5 core components, each one something she developed out of necessity in her own life. The 4-week financial reset, how to get control of your money when you're living paycheck to paycheck. This wasn't about complex investing or saving strategies. It was about creating a simple system to track every dollar, prioritize bills, and find money you didn't know you had. She included templates for tracking expenses, negotiating payment plans, and identifying income opportunities. The simplified home management system, how to keep a house functional with kids when you have no time or energy. She broke down which cleaning tasks actually mattered, and which ones were just perfectionist nonsense. She created schedules that worked with real life, not magazine fantasy. Most importantly, she showed how to get kids involved without it turning into a battle. The stress-free meal planning method. Her original system, expanded and refined. Not just what to cook, but how to plan, shop, prep, and execute meals when you're exhausted and broke. She included strategies for picky eaters, emergency meals, and feeding kids healthy food on a tiny budget. The Single Mom Schedule Framework. How to manage time when you're responsible for everything. She created templates for planning weeks, handling unexpected disruptions, and building routines that actually stick. This included strategies for managing school pickup, activities, appointments, and work without losing your sanity. The Emergency Stability Plan. What to do when everything falls apart. Because when you're a single mom, something always falls apart. This covered everything from handling sick kids when you can't miss work, to managing financial emergencies, to dealing with childcare failures. Each component came with detailed instructions, templates, worksheets, and real-life examples from her own experience and from other moms she'd helped. But here's where Mariella's approach was different from other parenting or budgeting advice. Everything was designed for crisis mode. Most organizing systems assumed you had time, energy, and resources to implement them perfectly. Mariella's system assumed you were hanging on by a thread and needed solutions that worked even when you were exhausted, broke, and overwhelmed. The pricing strategy came from a conversation with Jennifer, the blogger who'd hired her for her first paid writing gig. "You're undercharging," Jennifer told her during a phone call. "I've seen your engagement rates and the feedback you're getting. Moms are getting real results from your advice. You could easily charge $97 for something this comprehensive." Mariella's instinct was to keep the price low, because she knew how hard it was to find extra money when you're struggling. But Jennifer made a point that shifted her perspective. If you price it too low, people won't value it. And if you're not making enough money to support your own family, you can't help other families long term. You need to charge what it's worth so you can keep doing this work. She settled on $67 for the complete blueprint. High enough to be taken seriously, low enough to be accessible to her target audience. The launch strategy was simple because she didn't know enough to make it complicated. She announced it in a blog post, sent an email to her newsletter list, which had grown to 340 subscribers, and posted about it in the Facebook groups where she was active. She set a goal of selling 20 copies in the first week. That would be $1,340, enough to get her family out of the motel and into a proper apartment. The first sale came 37 minutes after she announced it, then another an hour later. By the end of the first day, she'd sold 18 copies. By the end of the week, she'd sold 47. More than $3,000 in 1 week. More money than she'd ever made in a month at any job. But the real validation came from the feedback. Moms were emailing her photos of their organized pantries, their kids' new chore charts, their tracked expenses showing hundreds of dollars in savings. They were sharing success stories in the Facebook groups, tagging her and thanking her for changing their lives. "I've been a single mom for 3 years, and I've never felt this in control." One mom wrote, "Your system doesn't just give advice, it gives you exactly what to do step by step. I followed your financial reset and found $300 in my budget I didn't know I had. My kids are actually helping with chores without fighting. I feel like I got my life back." Within 3 months, Mariella had sold 200 copies of the blueprint. She'd moved her family into a 2-bedroom apartment in a safe neighborhood. She'd bought a reliable used car. She was making more money than she'd ever made in her life, working from her kitchen table while her kids played in the living room. But she realized something important. This wasn't just about selling a product. It was about building a community of moms who were figuring out how to thrive, not just survive. She started a private Facebook group for women who'd bought the blueprint. It grew from 50 members to 500 in 6 months. The women were supporting each other, sharing tips, celebrating victories, and asking for help with specific challenges. That's when Mariella saw the real opportunity. These women didn't just need a system. They needed ongoing support, accountability, and community. They needed someone who understood their struggles because she'd lived them. She created a monthly membership program, ongoing support, new content each month, monthly group calls, and access to the private community. $27 per month. Within a year of sleeping in a motel room, Mariella had 400 monthly members and had sold over 1,000 copies of her blueprint. She was making over $20,000 per month, helping other single moms get their lives together. The method worked because it was born from real desperation and tested in real life. Every strategy in her system had been developed because she needed it to survive. Every template had been refined through her own mistakes. Every piece of advice had been proven in the chaos of managing 5 kids alone. She wasn't teaching theory. She was teaching what actually worked when your life was falling apart, and you needed solutions that worked immediately. Today, Mariella owns a house with a big backyard where her kids can play safely. Emma is 16 now, and she helps her mom manage the business, handling customer service emails and social media posts after school. Miguel, now 14, is on the honor roll and wants to study business in college. The 3 younger ones, Sophia, Carlos, and Lucas, are thriving in school and have friends over for playdates regularly. But the real transformation isn't in what Mariella owns. It's in who she's become. 3 years ago, she was apologizing for her existence. Apologizing to landlords, to employers, to her kids for not being able to provide more. She carried shame like a weight, convinced that her struggles meant she was failing as a mother and as a person. Now, she wakes up each morning knowing that her work matters. Her business, Real Mom Solutions, generates over $300,000 per year. She's helped over 5,000 families get their lives organized and their finances stable. Her private Facebook community has grown to 2,000 members who support each other through daily challenges and celebrate victories together. The business has evolved far beyond what she originally imagined. She's created courses on everything from potty training to teaching kids about money. She's written 3 books that became bestsellers in the parenting category. She speaks at conferences and has been featured in major parenting magazines. Last month, she hired her first full-time employee, a single mom named Crystal, who reminds Mariella of herself 3 years ago. Crystal handles customer service and community management, earning more than she ever made at her previous job while working from home with her own 2 kids. But what Mariella is most proud of isn't the money or the recognition. It's the letters. She gets emails every week from moms whose lives have changed because of her work. A woman in Michigan who paid off $15,000 in debt using Mariella's financial system. A mom in Texas who went from constant chaos to running a peaceful household where her kids actually listen and help out. A single mother in Florida who launched her own business using strategies she learned in Mariella's membership program. "You saved my family," one woman wrote recently. "I was ready to give up, convinced I was a terrible mother because I couldn't keep it together. Your system showed me that I wasn't failing. I just needed better tools. My kids are happier, I'm calmer, and for the first time in years, I actually like my life." The most meaningful moment came 6 months ago when Emma approached her mom with a proposal. "I want to help more kids whose moms are struggling," Emma said. "I remember what it felt like when we were scared all the time, when you were sad all the time, when everything felt hard. I want to create content for kids whose families are going through tough times." Together, they launched a section of the website dedicated to helping kids cope with family financial stress, divorce, and change. Emma writes blog posts and creates videos for kids, while Mariella provides resources for their parents. It's become one of the most popular sections of the website. Miguel has a different interest. He's fascinated by the business side of what his mom has built. He asks questions about marketing, customer service, and product development. Last summer, he helped design a new course format that increased completion rates by 40%. "I want to study business so I can help people like Mom does," he told her recently. "But I want to help families start businesses together." The younger 3 don't fully understand what their mom does for work, but they understand that she helps other families. When they meet new people and someone asks what their mom does, Carlos always says, "She helps moms not be sad anymore." It's the most accurate job description Mariella has ever heard. The financial security is wonderful, but it's not what drives her anymore. What drives her is the knowledge that struggle doesn't have to be permanent, that being overwhelmed doesn't mean you're weak or incapable, that solutions exist for problems that feel impossible. She speaks at single mom groups regularly, always sharing her story and practical strategies. But she also shares something more important: the belief that every mom has skills and knowledge that could help other people, if they can figure out how to package and share it. "I'm not successful because I'm special," she tells audiences. "I'm successful because I was desperate enough to try something different, and I was willing to help people solve real problems instead of trying to impress them with fancy solutions." Her advice for other struggling parents is simple. Start where you are. Use what you have. Help one person solve one problem. Then help another person solve another problem. Keep helping people until someone offers to pay you for your help. Then figure out how to help more people more efficiently. The house they live in now isn't a mansion, but it's theirs. The kids have their own rooms, there's always food in the refrigerator, and no one worries about eviction notices anymore. More importantly, there's peace in their home. The constant stress and fear that used to dominate their family life has been replaced by stability and hope. Mariella still works from her kitchen table sometimes, but now it's by choice, not necessity. She has a proper office upstairs, but she likes being in the heart of the house where she can hear her kids laughing and help with homework between calls. Every morning, she starts her day by reading messages from her community members, moms sharing victories, asking for advice, supporting each other through challenges. It reminds her why she does this work and keeps her grounded in the reality that behind every business metric is a real family whose life might be getting a little bit easier. The scared, ashamed woman who got that eviction notice 4 years ago still exists inside her sometimes. But now that woman is surrounded by proof that desperation can become determination, that survival skills can become business skills, and that the worst chapter of your life doesn't have to define the rest of your story. Last week, Mariella received a message that brought tears to her eyes. It was from Patricia, the woman who had invited her to speak at that first mom's group meeting when she was living in the motel. "I've been watching your journey for years now, and I wanted you to know something. That night you spoke to our group, you were shaking so badly I thought you might faint. but you gave the most practical, helpful presentation we'd ever had. After you left, the women talked about your advice for weeks. You planted seeds that night that are still growing. Several women in our group have started their own small businesses inspired by your example. You showed us that expertise doesn't come from degrees or credentials. It comes from living through something and figuring out how to make it work. That message reminded Mariella of something she tells her community members regularly. Your mess can become your message. Your struggles can become your strength. Your survival skills can become your service to others. The business continues to grow, but Mariella is intentional about growth now. She could expand faster, hire more people, create more products. But she's learned that bigger isn't always better. Her focus is on depth, not width. On creating resources that truly transform lives, not just products that generate revenue. She's working on her biggest project yet, a comprehensive program for single moms who want to start their own businesses. It combines everything she's learned about building a business with everything she knows about managing a family alone. The waiting list already has 800 people on it. I want to show other moms that you don't need a business degree or startup capital, she explains. You need a problem you can solve, people who need that problem solved, and the willingness to start before you feel ready. Her kids have learned lessons from their journey that will serve them their entire lives. They understand the value of money because they remember when there wasn't enough. They appreciate stability because they remember chaos. They know how to work as a team because they had to during the hard times. But most importantly, they've learned that circumstances don't define you. Your response to circumstances defines you. Emma, now applying to colleges, wrote her application essay about watching her mom build a business from their kitchen table. My mom taught me that success isn't about never failing, she wrote. It's about failing, learning, and trying again until something works. She showed me that helping other people isn't just the right thing to do. It's also the smartest thing to do, because when you solve problems for others, you solve problems for yourself too. As Mariella looks toward the future, she sees possibilities instead of obstacles. She's planning to buy a larger house where she can host in-person workshops. She's considering writing a book about turning survival skills into business skills. She's been invited to speak at conferences around the country. But her biggest dream is simpler than any business goal. She wants her story to give other struggling moms permission to believe that their situation can change. That being overwhelmed and broke doesn't mean you're stuck. That the skills you develop in crisis can become the foundation for success. 4 years ago, I thought my life was over, she reflects. I was convinced I was a failure as a mother and as a person. I couldn't see any way forward. But I was wrong about something important. My life wasn't ending. It was just beginning. Sometimes you need to lose everything you thought you wanted to discover what you're actually capable of. The woman who once served her children cereal for dinner because it was all she could afford now runs a business that helps thousands of families create stability and hope. The woman who apologized for her existence now speaks with confidence about the expertise she's developed through struggle. The transformation isn't just financial, it's fundamental. Mariella doesn't just have more money now. She has something more valuable. The knowledge that she can handle whatever life throws at her, and the skills to help other people do the same. Every morning, she looks at her family around the breakfast table. Not cereal this time, but pancakes and fruit and juice. And feels grateful, not just for the abundance, but for the journey that brought them here. The struggle taught her things that success never could have. The desperation forced her to discover capabilities she never knew she had. And every day, through her work, she gets to pass those lessons on to other mothers who are where she used to be. Scared, overwhelmed, and convinced that they're failing at the most important job in the world. You're not failing, she tells them. You're learning. And everything you're learning right now is preparing you for something bigger than you can imagine. End of the story. Leave a like. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next stories of overcoming